So, good day everyone. My name is Shafet Wagaskinyahan, and today I'll be lecturing you about a laser, which is known as an acronym of light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So, laser is a device that produces intense, focused, coherent light by using stimulated emission, which we'll be talking about that more on that later. So laser again is an acronym which is stand as a light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, wherein laser is an intense monochromatic source of electromagnetic radiation. It can generate coherent beam of photons, having widely varying frequencies and intensities. So lasers has a wide arrays of applications where it can be within the material physics field or focus more on laser spectroscopy. It can also be in the uh, medicine, which is in laser therapy, and in industrial, which is famously known within laser cutting or other forms of applications. So at the end of this lecture, so a quick maybe rundown of this lecture that you will learn is that first is to understand what a laser is, explain the fundamental principles of laser operation, differentiate between spontaneous and stimulated emission, identify the major components of a laser system, classify the common types of lasers, describe key applications of lasers, and lastly, connect laser physics to real-world technologies. So first of all, uh, in the laser, there is a set of atoms. So an atom has a set of quantized energy levels. So this is has been discussed previously. If you have read your modern physics and uh, physics 3 in the applied physics program, you will understand that an atom has a set of quantized energy levels. And these atoms typically interacts with electromagnetic radiation, wherein in a process will exchange energy. So this interaction is governed under the Boltzmann thermal distribution law in the equilibrium system, where we can see that there is a higher uh, a number density of slow varying speed of particles compared to the faster ones, or there is a much more higher population of low energy particles compared to the faster ones. So as you can see by the Boltzmann thermal distribution law. So this law is composed of the number of atoms with that energy and also the number of atoms in the ground state. So we call the uh, lower state of or the zero state of electrons or particles, which can be called or which is called the ground state. And the Kb is the Boltzmann constant, and T is the temperature. So an atom in an excited state will have a tendency to move downwards to an available lower energy level, and the extra energy possessed will be emitted as photons. So this is called spontaneous emission because when an atom is in the excited state, naturally by nature, that atom with that energy level of higher compared to the ground state will automatically or will technically or within due time it will go back to its ground state, and once that it goes to its ground state, uh, which is uh, from the higher energy level down to the lower energy level, it will emit a photon. So the particle in an excited state spends an average time. So we can call that particle within that time within when a particle is in an excited state, it has a time duration which we called it as a lifetime in the excited state. So that is in the form of tau. So when an atom in an excited state with energy E sub 2 meets an incoming photon with energy, which is in the form of the h bar omega, which is equal to the difference of the higher energy level as subtracted by the lower energy level, we call that wherein the E1 is the energy of the lower state again. We can see here in this diagram that when an incident photon uh, interacts with an excited atoms, there is a sudden uh, 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 that the excited atom will technically go down to its ground state or to go to the lower energy state because it interacts with the incident photon, and this leads to a sudden duplication of the photon. So there will become two photons emitted after the incident photon reacts to the excited state, and we call that as the stimulated emission. And this stimulated emission is the foundation of what we're going to deal about laser today. So this is one of the main principles of lasers. So if the atom is in the lower states and meets a photon under a similar condition, so the photon is absorbed and the atom moves to the excited state having higher energy. So if there is a photon interacting with a low energy state particle, that lower energy state particle will gain some energy going up to another higher state, which is wherein we can call it the excited state, and this is what we call a stimulated absorption. So if there is an incoming photon interacting with a particle, that particle will go to a higher energy state. And few points to be noted since we've discussed about stimulated emission, spontaneous emission, and stimulated absorption is that the process of stimulated emission is facilitated under that if the upper state has a longer lifetime, otherwise spontaneous emission will dominate. So this just means that since stimulated emission is interacting by an incident photon, the upper state has a longer, which means that it is facilitated by a upper state. It is dependent on a longer lifetime. Otherwise, if it is not within the longer lifetime, spontaneous emission will dominate, which is typically an inevitable process or inevitable condition wherein that higher or energy or higher state particle will automatically or will by time it will automatically go to its ground state. So it will equilibrium, or it will reach an equilibrium at if we say it like that. And second, the rate of stimulated emission is the same as that of absorption. And third is due to Boltzmann's law, the number of atoms in the upper state is negligibly small compared to that in the ground state. So as we can see here in the graph previously in the graph, that there are more lower energy particles compared to the higher energy ones. So this is under the Boltzmann's law. So since laser is in the process of amplified stimulated emission, so we'll look into that. So in the process of stimulated emission, so one photon interacting with an atom in an excited state may cause emission of another photon with the same energy and in the same phase will continue until a cascade is formed. So in this image, we can see that if there is a spontaneously emitted photon, since the spontaneously emitted photon will act as a seed photon, it will react with another higher energy state particle, and this will emit and this will interact with it, in that high energy state particle will go down to the ground state and thus releasing a identical photon similar to the incident photon. So if there are more particles within that system or within that system, it will create a cascade which leads to the formation of numerous particles emitting with the same emitted photon, with the same incident photon, same frequencies, same speed, and other characteristics. However, due to the nature of this stimulated emission, this is quite fast and requires a continuous production of energy, and that is why uh, in order to sustain the cascade of excited atoms to emit photons, it needs a large amount of atoms in the excited state, and that excited state should be metastable. So metastable just means that it is in the longer or a longer time within that state. So a metastable state is a temporary, relatively stable condition of a system that isn't its lowest energy or ground state, but is prevented from immediately dropping to that lowest state by an energy barrier, allowing it to persist for a significant time before transitioning. And in here, we can see here in this image is that when an electron or is in the higher energy state, let's just say in the E2, there will be another, let's just say a half energy state wherein it will go down to that metastable state before reaching the ground state. So that is the condition in order to sustain the stimulated emission. So we need to put more particles in that metastable state. But there is a catch. Due to the thermal distribution law, it prevents the accumulation of a large number of atoms in the excited state. And this is the reason that laser in the past was not possible for a long time due to the lack of knowledge in terms of behavior of light and also the technology in the past. So, but it was technically known by Einstein's theory. So for this reason, one has to create. So in order for that to become sustainable, in order to become the stimulated emission to be sustainable for in the long run, one has to create a situation in which we have an atomic medium and that has a large number of atoms in the excited state compared to that in the lower state, which is in the past this is really hard because uh, because in nature that doesn't occur. So we need to first produce what we call a population inversion, and this is a non-equilibrium state where more atoms are in a higher energy state than in a lower energy state. So we can see here that in the normal state there are more particles in the ground state compared to the excited state. But if we somehow invert that state, we can get a larger amount of higher energy particles compared to the ground state. So this is what we need for us to have a sustainable stimulated emission in order for us to amplify our laser, because this is the principle or the foundation of how we understand laser works. So the distribution law will demand that the temperature is relatively less than zero, because this is the case for thermodynamic and equilibrium, as it is not allowed in equilibrium thermodynamics. And this is what we have to take note, because the Boltzmann distribution law only follows equilibrium states. And if this is what we are working on in the laser, or in the behavior of laser, so we have to follow that the temperature must be less than zero. Okay, moving on. So a third metastable state can accumulate the atoms for sufficient long duration so that the stimulated emission can effectively dominate and amplification is achieved. So we can see here that if there is a dose of higher energy, there will be an excitation occurring wherein aside from reaching from second state, we have enough energy to push that particle to a much more higher state wherein it can go down to a metastable state. It can occur to a metastable state before it reaches to the ground state. And once that uh, other remnants of I don't say other remnants, but if there is a spontaneous emission occurring, or since there is a really possibility that other particles will directly go to the ground state, those emitted photons will react to the metastable state of particles with the particles in the metastable state, thus creating a cascade of stimulated emission, which is very crucial in understanding how laser works again. So in order to sustain the process of a part of the energy gain in the stimulated process, there should be a feedback to the system so that the multiplication process can continue. So within the laser chamber, or within the optical cavity, there is a two mirror facing each other, wherein the other one is a high reflectivity mirror and another is a partially reflective mirror, wherein once that stimulated emission occurs, not all particle or not all photons will be ejected out of the laser system or a laser device. So it needs to be sustainable, wherein we have to recycle that photon in order to react again, creating a spontaneous absorption to create a continuous laser beam. And this is we'll dive into more of its part and its significance further down the line. So inside the laser cavity, so atoms are first excited in this image by pumping through stimulated absorption, leading to population inversion. So some atoms then undergo spontaneous emission, producing seed photons, and these photons initiated by stimulated emission, which rapidly dominates once the laser reaches threshold, producing a coherent laser beam. So we can see here in this diagram, wherein if there is a energy, if there is an energy, this is a step-by-step process, wherein if there is enough energy or more energy to excite the particles to a much more higher energy state, there will be a stimulated absorption leading to population inversion. And this population inversion, some of these particles will go to spontaneous emission, and this spontaneous emission will create seed photons, thus creating a cascade that's producing stimulated emission, which is this is the backbone or general principle of what a laser is. So that is how we produce a laser. So it has a numerous process in order to create a coherent laser beam. So a laser, as this example, has three essential components. So all lasers has three general essential components, which is first is the cavity resonator, the active medium, and the pumping mechanism. So a cavity resonator is confined within two mirrors, as I've said previously, which is this is a very important part of the mirror of the laser, which reflects the optical wave back and forth within the cavity to help build up of energy and also sustains the laser. Because if you set out all the photons outside, or if you set out all the photons, there isn't much more left, or the population inversion cannot sustain itself. So an example here is within this laser cavity, and we can see again here in this image that uh, the another part, the part of there are two parts of mirror, wherein the one is highly reflective and the other is partially reflective. So this just means that all particles will reflect and some particles will exit, thus producing a coherent laser beam. Second is the active medium. So filled with atoms or atomic systems with discrete quantized energy levels such that population inversion can be established. So this is can be typically found, some of these are in dyes or crystal forms. So this just means that you need some reactive particles or reactive molecules that a simple energy can excite it. So in order for us to make it more easy to produce lasers. So some of this is, as an example of here, is that in the solid state lasers, because there are different lasers, so I'll discuss that later also. In the solid state lasers, there is the INDIAG, which is the neodymium doped yttrium aluminum garnet gas lasers. An example here is the helium and neon gas. Semiconductor lasers is the famously known used gallium arsenide, and in dye lasers is rhodamine. So pumping mechanism here, and the third is the pumping mechanism is that the pumping helps create a population inversion. Again, needs to sustain the population inversion in order for us to keep producing the coherent or stimulated emission, leading to the formation of lasers, laser beams. It can be done with the help of radiation, electric current, high voltage electric discharges. So examples here is an optical pumping. So we can see here is that at the optical pumping of a laser diode. So the bottom here is the laser diode, while the arc lamp is on the top. So this emits hot temperature, thus producing excited particles. And once these excited particles is interacted with seed photons due to the spontaneous immersion, will have produced a laser due to the amplification of the stimulated emission. So light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So properties of laser radiation is composed of temporal coherence, spatial coherence. First, the temporal coherence is the laser light maintains a stable phase over time. Spatial coherence is that the phase is correlated across the wavefront at different points in space. And third is the directionality. Laser light propagates as a highly collimated beam with very small divergence. So types of laser is the continuous wave laser and the pulse wave laser. So the continuous wave laser is emit a constant uninterrupted beam of light, while the pulse wave laser emit light in short bursts or pulses, duration within the range of nanoseconds to femtoseconds. So one of the more famous or currently used is the continuous wave laser because it has a more direct uh, application. So in the continuous wave laser, we can there in the medicine or in the cosmetic industry, continuous wave laser. An example here is the CO2 laser, which many dermatologists use. And in the pulse wave laser, an example here is the transverse electric wave or transverse electric amplification or transverse electric amplification wave or the transverse wave or IDT T laser or the transverse electric amplified laser is that it emits a shorter burst of pulses. So this is an example of pulse wave laser, and this is the types of lasers used. So I think that's end my presentation, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.